Yeah, so my dad, Tom, did a great job building this team over the last 40 years. And as soon as I started getting in a higher management leadership position, I was realizing that everyone has a lot of autonomy, but they're all working in their own silos, and which is great, but it's really hard to scale that way. So really trying to figure out how do we bring the team together.
This is the Organizational Health Advantage podcast with Keith Hadley and James Felton, principal consultants at Table Group. They're in the business of coaching leaders to build strategic focus and cultural alignment that leads to amazing results. Welcome to the Org Health Advantage.
Welcome back to the Organizational Health Advantage. I am Keith Hadley, and I'm normally joined by my colleague and good friend, James Felton. But today, I'm joined with my guest host, Dan O'Brien, a great dude, somebody I've worked together with a lot. Dan, welcome to the show, and I'm excited about our guest.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. I appreciate you having us on.
I
am equally excited about our guest, Matt. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So, Matt Salamone.
Yep.
All right. I had to make sure I had the pronunciation there right.
Yeah.
So awesome. Matt, Dan, introduce our guest to us. Tell us a little bit about him, and then we're just going to dive in.
Yeah, Matt, I was really excited to have you on this podcast because of your great story, your journey, not only as a CEO, but just growing up in this company. And I would love for you to tell more about that story. But to give you an official introduction, Matt is the CEO of HRD Aerosystems down in Southern California, but also out in, you have a facility out in Texas. And what's a super unique part of your story is HRD acquired AETC, Applied Energy Technology Corp. And now you are the CEO of both of those companies and have two different leadership groups with some overlap. Another unique part of your journey and your story, but it's an important topic for all of us because you're all about airline safety in both companies, and so thanks for what you do to keep us all safe. You're the important people. We don't even realize how much we care about you and how much you do for us and keeping us safe. But we've become good friends, Matt, and so I care a lot about you, and I want people to hear. It's almost like a pay it forward. And I would love for you to pay forward. Not only your journey and what you've learned, but how has organizational health helped you and supported you along the way? That's a big part of it. But we're just excited to have you, Matt, and to hear your story.
Thank you,
Matt. Give us a sense of the business, the scope. Just tell us a little bit about the organizations.
Yeah. So as Dan mentioned, we're keeping people safe out there who fly, and unfortunately, lately it seems like it's been happening a lot, but. It's all that equipment that you never want to see, you never want to use. So anything from the emergency slides, rafts, fire extinguishers, and oxygen systems. My dad originally started the business in 1985, and I've been around since I was around 8 years old, and kind of grew up with the business. So,
what was your job at 8 years old?
I was packaging these washers, and it was usually when I got in trouble. So
okay. Yeah. There's like a little bit of penance, right? Go package washers. That's reassuring to know that you don't have 8-year-olds repairing aircraft.
Yeah, child labor.
Yeah, there you go. And now speaking to children, we hear you're a new dad. Tell us a little bit about that.
6 months old, baby boy Bowie. It's been really great. A lot of work. My wife's doing a lot of it, staying up late with him, waking up in the middle of the night, but it's been really exciting. So
yeah.
And maybe one of the most important questions is, as you are a musician, as part of your journey and story, and is Bowie a name after David Bowie, the musician? That's the most important thing we could really ask you.
Yep, it's Chelsea, and her mom's like big David Bowie fan, so
I love it.
Amazing.
So cool.
So HRD, how many employees? Kind of, give us a sense of like if we were to tour around with you one day on the job, what would we be seeing?
Yeah, so we have 3 locations. We're here in Southern California as headquarters, our shop in Texas, and then we have a small shop in Malaysia. We're around 260 employees.
Okay.
We are the largest independent repair station, I think, in the world. So
wow. Wow. And what kind of customers do you have?
Anywhere from major airlines, United, Allegiant, Delta, to large corporate aircraft. So NetJets being one of them, and then also some military applications. So
Okay. Wow.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, the whole scope.
Yeah. So Matt, you've been working with Dan, working with,
Mhm.
and Casey, right? Casey Thompson
Mhm.
also.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about like what was going on with you or with the company that kind of first got you interested in this topic of organizational health.
Yeah. So my dad, Tom, did a great job building this team over the last 40 years, and as soon as I started getting in a higher management leadership position, I was realizing that everyone has a lot of autonomy, but they're all working in their own silos, and which is great, but it's really hard to scale that way. So really trying to figure out how do we bring the team together. We tried a couple different things. We tried OKRs, just wasn't the right fit for us. Then started reading Patrick Lencioni's books, and it was like, this feels exactly like what's going on. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Do you remember the first one you read?
I believe it was Five Dysfunctions of a Team.
Okay. All right.
Matt,
Yeah.
Matt, can you just share with us a little bit? One of my favorite stories that you tell is just about, you're growing up in the warehouse, you're running around, and there's all these adults who basically are like supervising you, babysitting you, and now here you are running the company, and the people that were babysitting you while you're running around at 8 years old, putting washers in bags. Now you're running the company, and they're on your leadership team.
Right.
Like, what was that transition, that journey? How has that been for you?
So a few people knew it was going to happen. They knew at 8 years old. Some others, it's been a little bit harder. It's like I think they still see me as a child, and so just getting over that over the last couple of years, especially working with the table group, going through this org health has changed some of that. And then just seeing me grow as a leader, I think it's been more natural. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what part of the table group ideology helped you most with that, would you say?
Really the vulnerability and like the focus on the behaviors. The work part's easy. Like I mentioned, everyone's been very successful in their roles, but they've been successful in their roles kind of on their own. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about, I totally want to dig into this more. I also want to hear when you mentioned like silos, overcoming silos, you're also trying to overcome like team cohesion. But what was it about either the five dysfunctions of a team, or I'm assuming later, maybe did you ever read The Advantage?
Mm-hmm.
Like what were some of those early things that you're like, you know what, I probably need to pay more attention to this. Help us get a little sense of like the from it before you give us the two. Like where was the company at?
So a lot of the conversations would come to me, and it would be venting conversations like, so and so is not doing this, so and so is not doing that, and then I would have to go to that person and have a conversation, and then that person would say the same thing about the other person, and it'd be like, this is so much work trying to go back and forth between these people, and it was exhausting. And it's like, why are we doing this? So
yeah. And what have you learned in the meantime?
There's always going to be a little bit of that. People aren't fully. I mean, even though we can be vulnerable, I think it's an ongoing process. It's ongoing growth, but it's much better now. We're able to have those open conversations. If there are, some of those venting conversations, it's like, hey, you need to go talk to him this way, ask curious questions. Like, let's figure this out. So,
yeah. That's amazing.
And the dynamic, real quick, the dynamic of the team, and you think back to that first offsite. So Casey Thompson, Keith and I's colleague, Casey Thompson, as Keith mentioned, joined me, and we had that great 2 days in Southern California together. What do you recall about that in terms of the impact of those 2 days and the conversations that we started to have to help you break those silos and start working on that team cohesion?
It was difficult. I'll say that much.
Can you say more about that?
it's hard being that open. Um, it's hard being vulnerable sometimes. And
Hmm.
especially, for some of the team that have worked together for 20 plus years, you learn a different side of them that, it's not like you're going and hanging out with them on the weekend. So sometimes you never hear about it.
Yeah.
And I think I wasn't, I was surprised at how well everyone kind of bought into it, I guess, or how open they were to the process. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, the word.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Keith.
I was just going to ask, like, when you think about yourself, your personality, your upbringing, what part of your leadership would you say, like, what part about you really shined out and made this possible? And I'm going to ask also, like, what part about you then did you find was most challenged, that you had like the kind of the most growth?
Yeah. I would say kind of just around the core values, really, of like
Yeah.
who I am as a person versus what I
Mm.
do. And I think I thought being a leader was like setting the good example, like doing all this stuff better than they can do it, and then they follow. And I learned that's not really how it works.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think definitely the core values. What was the second part of that question?
Yeah, no, just like as a leader though, what did you learn? Like, okay, based on how I'm wired, this part is actually hard.
Yeah, having those difficult conversations.
Okay,
That was the
that
hardest
wasn't
thing.
something you enjoyed.
Yeah, no. No, especially, I look up to them. They were my
Yeah,
mentors, and
yeah,
now I'm having these difficult conversations. So,
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and not only your mentors, but your dad, right? You had to have
yeah,
courageous, really tough, courageous conversations and difficult conversations with your dad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the biggest challenge there?
Um, hmm. That's a tough one. I think just getting him to see that I'm capable.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it was kind of the similar thing. It's like he's viewing me as a child, or his son, and he's still looking out for me. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So fast forward. So how long has it been, and
Mm.
how has the team evolved? Let me start with you. How have you evolved as a leader in this process?
Much more confident now.
Okay.
I know the direction we need to go. I know how to convey that message to the
Yep.
team. Um, we're coming up on 2 years now,
Okay.
using this structure, working with the table group. Team has evolved immensely.
Hmm.
Our Texas facility has grown. It's scaled up, and I would say it's due to this structure. Our director of operations over there, I don't think he could do it on his own.
Yep.
He would probably argue that he could. He's ex-military, and there's nothing that can stop him. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're speaking about John. I know he's a mentor of yours.
Yeah.
And I know I brought this up earlier, but I just love the dynamic between the two of you, because he talks about how much you mean to him, and how proud he is of your transformation, not just the transformation of the company, but your transformation and your courage. We would just love to hear, like, how has that been for you, having your mentor now be someone on the team, and I've watched you have really hard conversations with John in front of the
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious what that dynamic's been like for you.
And it's been really exciting. Before he understood vulnerability, it was like, I don't even know if he could stay on the team. I don't even know if he could stay with the company. And now to see him grow to where he is now, I mean, it's just great. It's really exciting to see, and love working with him. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just for context, John is a Marine. He is an unbelievable human being.
yeah.
He's a Marine. So you throw a Marine into a conversation about vulnerability, and he looks at you a little sideways, like, I'm not something I'm used to. He's been great though. He's developed it like a muscle. He's developed his vulnerability. It's been
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. That's an awesome story. Okay. So, as you think about now kind of the totality of this work, we got the 4 disciplines, we got meetings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what part of this journey has been like easier than you thought it was going to be. Like when you were first preparing for it, it was like, that actually turned out way easier, or was way better than I thought it would be?
Yeah. I think getting everyone on board, I thought
Okay.
it was going to be much harder. Um, having gone through different systems in the past, it's just like, oh, this is just going to be another thing that lasts 3 months or 6 months, and then we're going to forget about it.
Yeah.
And even after the first meeting, everyone was pretty bought in, and like, hey, it's different. This is different than a system. This is different than just like having a to-do list and checking it off and setting up these meetings. It's all around these behaviors, and it's very different than anything else they've done in the past.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even our director of engineering, he has a long history at other companies and publicly traded companies, and he's like, we never did anything like this. This is great. So yeah.
What have you had to do to sustain it?
Go all in. Be very committed. Tweak things a little bit to make it work for us. But for the most part, it was like, I was running a couple of the offsites on my own, and just really staying committed, staying on top of it, doing all the meeting structure, being very consistent. So
yeah. How do you prepare for those offsites that you run on your own?
So I go through there's like a I don't know, offsite book, basically kind of talks you through everything, and so it's mostly mental preparation that I'm going through. Trying to get the next thematic goal set up. How can I get the most out of people? How can we have the most useful time? So how can I stir up conflict a little bit, like healthy conflict, and try to get all that stuff out during the offsites. And so the next 3 months, there's nothing in the back of the mind of someone's mind that's lingering. So,
yeah.
And so in terms of having the offsite with us there and doing them on your own, and I just keep coming back to the word courage for you, like the courage to say, you know what, I think this is going to be healthy if we do some of these on our own. What have been the pros and cons?
So doing it on my own, I mean, it really is, it's not up to the same caliber. So I'll say that. But it is like a week of preparation that I'm doing, and, the difficult conversations, but they're a little harder to have, I would say, but, they still happen. Just a little bit, I don't know how to say, not more difficult. It's just, maybe it takes a little longer, or maybe I didn't get everything out. So, yeah.
But I love the fact that you're doing that. There's some people that they assume that, hey, Table Group we want to be involved in every offsite. We're like, no, we might have a lot of involvement in the first couple of offsites that we work with the client, but then over time, it's about stepping up and doing the work. We like to say that you're not here to watch us do our job. We're here to help you do your job, and your job is to run offsites. And it sounds like you've embraced that as a leader. And so, I would just, like what are maybe some tips or some best practices that you're learning to master?
Yeah, I mean,
talk about that a bit.
It really helped on my personal development, communication skills, everything. Some tips would just be very prepared. Be prepared for the unexpected. And you can always pause. You can always say, "Hey, this isn't healthy. Let's take this offline. Let's get out of the unhealthy conflict," or things like that. So
yeah. We often refer to that moment as kind of like dual processing, which means like at one level, your brain is trying to process through the information that's being talked about, like whatever that business decision is. The other part of your brain is processing through like, wow, how are we talking about this? Who's doing a lot of talking? Who's been quiet? Who agrees with whom? How long have we been at this? It's that, kind of working on both levels is a skill to master. One of the benefits we have often as consultants is that like we don't have to spend a whole lot of time trying to wrestle with the content that you're working on. We can sort of stay above and observe the team. So that's awesome that you're doing that.
I would say, it was challenging in the beginning of like, I really focus on the team, and it's like, well, wait, I have like this business we have to run and come back to. It's like, what's gonna like after this offsite going to look like when we get back to the meetings? So
yeah.
One thing to emphasize, one thing you mentioned, Keith. Some people, Matt, picture our offsites are very structured. We have these agendas and we follow the agendas, and it's exactly the exact opposite. We want to talk about the highest and best, and what's the most important thing we can address for this company to help you all move forward and for this team. And I would love to hear, if you could share the several times that this team has gone completely off script because a topic came up specifically around individuals, and we don't have to mention any names, but some individuals were having, individual hard times or hard times in their position, and we pivoted and had some pretty intense conversations. Could you just kind of share what that experience was like for you?
Yeah. So very fluid. So as soon as, we see one of the team members bring something up and it's like, wait, there's something else to unpack there.
Yes.
We change the agenda for the day. We figure out what's going on, talk about it as a team, and try to show some light at the end of the tunnel of like helping them get out of it. If it's a, personal issue, or if it's a, issue with the rest of the team, it's like, let's figure this out. Let's talk about it. And let's move forward. Some of the stuff still comes out, in our offsites, and it's not like these get fixed in these 2-day offsites. It's ongoing work. So
right. Talk about that a little bit, because you're right. It's not about the offsite. The offsite is 2 days out of a quarter or more. What do you do in the meantime? What is the work of a CEO outside of offsites?
Yeah, really overseeing the team. Making sure there's that trust still going on, the basis of everything, and fishing for that conflict in our meetings. It's easy to get into that structure of just like, all right, we have a tactical meeting every Monday. All right, how's everyone doing? Let's get through this and let's move on and go and work. And sometimes it's not always that. It's seeing how people are reacting and listening to them, and maybe having hard conversations around how they're showing up to the meetings.
Yeah.
So it's all of those 5 dysfunctions of really kind of revisiting those throughout and making sure that everyone's staying on track. So
I love you hearing. I love hearing you say fish for conflict. We do that. One of the reasons we had some of those amazing conversations is the offsite is because if we sensed something was up, we just kept trying to unpack it and go down that path. But what does that look like in the weekly? That it's easier in the offsite. You have a little more time. You're usually away from the office, but a lot of groups we work with, they get in a meeting room on a Monday or a Tuesday, and they only have an hour or 90 minutes. And it's a lot of updating and reporting. And so what do your weeklies look like? How do you kind of mine for that conflict in the weeklies, just as opposed to just the offsites?
Yeah. Really, like in our weekly tactical, we might be talking about a topic or a standard operating objective, like, hey, profits down this month, what's going on? And it might turn into an hour-long conversation of everything that's going on, on the sales side, on the operations side. Sometimes the conflict doesn't come out. Sometimes it's not that apparent. Sometimes it ends up being a conversation one-on-one after the meeting, and it's like, hey, this is how you showed up. Can you make sure you talk to so-and-so and fix this? Or do we need to bring it to the whole group and talk about this as a team? And a lot of the times it's like, oh no, I didn't realize that. Let me go talk to him. So
yeah. Hey, we've been talking a lot about discipline one stuff, cohesive team, but Matt, you have done a ton of work on your organizational clarity, the answers to the 6 questions. we won't go into the details if you don't want to on what your rally cry is. That might be personal, but at least those first 4 questions, like walk us through your clarity, what it means to you, how you're using it.
Yeah. So I'll start with core values. So we get it done with a servant's heart, and we're better than yesterday. So really, when we were first discovering these, it's like, what are you actually doing in your business, and what have you been doing? And Table Group brought that out of, that's truly our core values. So we recognize we get it done no matter what. We find a way. Servant's heart, because we're always willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, even if I have to go down to the shop and service a fire bottle, I'll do it. And then better than yesterday, we're just always wanting to improve ourselves and always have a growth mindset. So,
have you found you're having conversations with employees about these core values, either because you're celebrating what they're doing or they're not living up to it in the moment? Well, like, how have you been using them?
Yeah. So we have them posted up, around all the shops, but we also recognize employees. We do call them spotlight awards or rewards. So anytime we see one of these values being portrayed, we go and give them a reward. And, we start every meeting, going through these organizational clarity questions. And, everyone's really adopted them. And it's been challenging, getting the next level leaders, management and down to the shop employees on board, to remember all of them. But I mean, we used to have kind of the basic core values that, like the office has, integrity, teamwork, perseverance, all that stuff. So, it's been much more realistic.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then as far as the other organizational clarity questions, we service and support aircraft safety equipment to ensure the safest journey for you and your family. And, truly at our core, that's what we're looking out for. So everyone that's flying, and a lot of the times it's us flying or our family members. So,
yeah.
So Matt, we have teams come up with some very specific strategic anchors or strategic lenses that they use as filters for decision making, so that we can ensure more consistent, differentiating decisions for a company. So for yours, I'm looking at long-term partnerships, deals that make sense and easy on the customer. Can you think of some examples or some times where you've used those filters to make some tough decisions?
Yeah, I mean, going to bid a new contract. Is it going to be a long-term partnership? Is it going to be profitable? Can we even do the work? And how can we be easy on the customer? If it's, a big airline that, way exceeds our capacity, it's like, do we have the space, the capability to do it? So running through those filters, I mean, really helps us make that decision. And then, not even talking about all of Applied Energy's core values and everything, but we have a whole other set that we run those filters through, and it's really helped. Like we had a huge contract that would have quadrupled our business. It was a huge opportunity. We ran it through those filters, and we're like, we have to say no to this. So,
Such a great story. How hard was that for you? I mean, that's clearly a lot of revenue, right? And so many of our teams, our leaders, our companies make decisions, whether they want to admit it or not, based on that bottom line, which of course is important. But how hard was that for you? And any regrets? Any doubt in saying no to that opportunity?
No regrets, no doubts. It was a little difficult because it's like, you look at the dollar signs and it's like, that would be awesome. But you think of all the challenges that are going to come with it, and really wanting to stay, like, keep everyone's sanity at the same time. It's like, this is going to tear the team down. This is going to possibly tear the company down if we try to say yes to this. So,
That's great. That's good discipline and a lot of courage.
Yes.
That is true, Dan. We often say that, having a clear strategy or strategic anchors is one of the things that gives us the courage to say no, or the courage to say yes. It's like, there's no reason not to do this. We should totally do it. It's going to be challenging, but this is exactly why, this is our strategy. This is the center of the bullseye.
Yeah.
All right. So questions 5 and 6 are all about our thematic goal, or what we call the rally cry. And then, of course, who must do what as it relates to that or every other part of the business, role clarity. Matt, tell us a little bit about your experiences with thematic goal.
Yeah. So recently we had for Applied Energy, we were going through our offsite. We're going through a ERP implementation. And we probably spent, great stuff.
Great fun.
We spent about an hour talking, trying to figure out, hey, are we ready to talk about the next thematic goal? We threw in a lot of ideas on, growth and strategy and what are we going to do next? We even tried to plan for, all right, after we do this ERP implementation, what are we going to focus on? And it took that full hour of really talking through everything and realizing that, this is going to take longer than 3 months, and there's going to be work after the implementation. And let's not even come up with the next thematic goal at this time. And, we'll push it off to the next offsite, or hopefully not the next offsite, because that means the ERP implementation isn't going well. But but it was a great exercise.
And just how's the overall impact of thematic goals in general? The use of them, the impact of them. For us, they're our priority. That's our priority question, so that we're not focusing on too many things at once. Let's focus on one thing. What's most important right now? How has the thematic goal experience been for you and your teams?
I don't know how we were doing it before. I don't know how we were surviving. I know before we would do all right, beginning of the year, what are all the goals we want to do for the whole year? And we would put on a list of 20 to 30 things. And it was all right, we're checking in every month, but it was so much stuff, and having focus is such a better way to carry out these objectives.
Was that when you were doing using more of the OKR process?
Yes.
Yeah. Comment on that, because we have a lot of leaders that really love OKRs, and I love the clarity of the OKRs, but that distinction that you just made about making a list of 30 things versus identifying the one thing that's most important.
Yeah.
Talk about that switch from one mindset to another mindset.
Yeah. With OKRs, maybe it works better for some companies. Maybe for tech companies, it's ideal. But really, when you're trying to bring the whole executive team around one idea, it's so easy to get distracted, and it's so easy to say, well, I'm going to go to the bottom of the list and start working on this other thing, but I'm going to need everyone else's input, or I'm going to need their support to get this done. But they're over here working on their priority project. And so really bringing that all together, where the executive team is all focused on just one of those projects all at the same time.
Yeah.
It allows us to support each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's not, we often hear, it's wait, so you're saying we don't have to do that other stuff?
Yeah.
Is that how would you respond to that?
No, we still have to do it, but it's it's not the focus at that time. And there are arguments. We do go back and forth on, hey, we really need to focus on this right now, or we need to focus on this other thing. And there is some pushback. And that's where we get to disagree and commit.
Yeah.
And it's hey, we're all going to focus on this right now. And, at the next offsite, or, the next thematic goal, then we'll address it then.
Yeah.
We have to choose one at a time. So,
well, let me speak to that quickly. And it's a nice blend of discipline 1 and 2. While we were having that hour-long conversation about what's most important, your leadership really shined in that moment, Matt, because half the team were saying, let's push forward. And the other half was like, hey, we got to get this right before we move on. And you facilitated, you were like masterful in terms of just you were mining for conflict. You were pulling conversations out. And at the end, you didn't try to talk everybody into your decision. You said, hey, okay, thank you. This is what I want to do. Let's stick with this thematic goal and make sure we land it. And then we'll push so that we can have a new one at the next offsite. So instead of trying to get consensus of the whole team, because it really was like a 50-50 split. It was just a really cool moment where you blended discipline one, the behaviors needed to be a great leader in a team with this clarity question. And I just thought that was a great moment for you as a leader.
That's great. We often say that, I shouldn't say we often say, I recently read in an article that was talking about Steve Jobs. It was an Inc. article. It's great, but Steve Jobs was somebody who's, I don't appreciate everything about his leadership style, but he was a focused dude. And the article commented on this idea that hey, there's a lot of things that we should be working on, that we could be working on. There are a few things that we really should be working on, but there's only one thing that we absolutely must be working on. And kind of knowing that difference, like we're always going to be busy. Every day is going to be busy, but there's probably one thing that's most important. And we often say that one of the jobs of a CEO, like if you were to reduce the CEO's job down to a couple of simple statements, it would be like, hey, your job is to know what matters most right now for the business. This is not just like, hey, we get to make up our answer. It's like, no, something actually is more important than everything else. And it's this. We're going to put a stake in the ground and keep focus. So
I think, Dan, you actually mentioned, priorities. Like it shouldn't be plural.
Right.
Priority.
It literally, back in the day, you look in the dictionary, it didn't say priorities. That wasn't a word. It was priority. And we had to add that because we've gotten so good at multitasking. Or so bad at it, I should say.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that good walk through your clarity. So Matt, as we're kind of winding down our conversation, maybe share a couple of key lessons that you've learned about yourself, about this work, about being a CEO. What have been some lessons?
Patience, perseverance. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. So, it's just keep at it, go all in, I would say. Just commit to something like this. I mean, tweak it to make it your own, and just be relentless with execution, honestly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan, any thoughts from you as we're kind of wrapping up this conversation, as you reflected on the time you spent with Matt, with his team?
Well, I'm being a little bit redundant, but I really want to emphasize how impressed I have been with you, Matt. You're obviously a hardworking, great human being, new father. I love how much you love your wife and your child and how passionate you are about the company. But I just keep coming back to the word courage. I just want to, I just want to celebrate your courage to take over a company that your dad started, growing up in the warehouse, leading people who were babysitting you, and doing it with two companies. We didn't get a lot of time to talk about that, but you're leading two different companies with two different sets of clarity questions, two different leadership teams, and you're doing it with grace. And I love that you said that you're doing it. You're being relentless and you're going all in and you're being courageous. Continued success. You're crushing it. Bottom line, you're crushing it, and I'm not surprised because of your commitment to a process and not getting caught up in all the emotional, strings and things that can pull you in all different ways.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate your help and getting me there. So,
just alongside you, man. Just alongside you.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. It was just great to hear how you've systematically, carefully, on purpose, stepped in through this every step of the way, and the impact that it's having on the business. Thank you for those that are listening today. We would say again, subscribe to this, like this, share it with other folks, and we will see you next time on the Organizational Health Advantage. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Org Health Advantage. Your hosts, Keith and James, are helping leaders change the world of work and invite you to share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. For more resources on building stronger teams and organizational health, check out tablegroup.com.